Exactly. Well, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute, and I'm looking forward to getting into your history and what you do. It's fascinating. And to begin that, one of the most momentous events that we've gone through in our lifetime was COVID, living through a pandemic. How
Mhm.
did you get through that time period, and how did it change the way that you do things now?
Oh, wow. That was a big shift for me. Beginning COVID, leading into COVID, my husband had retired, and I already had a previous marriage to a neurodiverse husband, and my son is neurodiverse, meaning high functioning autism and ADHD. I knew about it, but not very much in depth. Coming into his retirement age, 2018, 19, I began to realize that I wondered if he was also on the spectrum. In 2020, as everything stopped, I actually began to take a deep look at some of our financial situations and found that there was sort of a way that he had been keeping ledgers that really favored his assets privately and not our community assets. So I began reading law, and it turned out I had quite a sizable amount of a claim on his private assets that should have been in our community assets. And he ended up realizing instead of going with me to civil court, he could mediate with me and restore those assets. But in the process of that, Joe, I began to realize, wow, there's a lot going on here with neurodiversity. He didn't want to own it. I found a coach. My coach is actually in Atlanta, Georgia. She is a biblically trained, clinically trained expert in neurodiversity, and she and her husband work with couples. Her husband is neurodiverse. She is not. They've raised neurodiverse children as well. In working with her, um, my husband was initially interested, but not very interested in owning anything. And I think he began really, really resenting me for having challenged some of the things, that after our 15-year marriage, he was not at all happy about. Um, to try to understand him better, I began to learn so much more about neurodiversity. And I decided to go get a master's in marriage and family therapy, which I did all online virtually. So I channeled this COVID time into understanding, marital assets, understanding my husband better and neurodiversity, finding this coach, and beginning my master's in marriage and family therapy. Because of my counseling training, I had a lot of biblical counseling, church counseling, and I had coached a lot of people in business and just done a lot of coaching. My mentor, because our coaching was not working out with my husband, he didn't want to participate. He became very difficult. I was very sad about that, but I began to see I needed to chart a future for myself, and I did. And God opened doors for me to begin to meet and help other people who are in the situation of being in a neurodiverse marriage. My coach mentor began to say, get this certification, get that certification. I'm going to be able to send you some overflow clients. And I could have backed into the coaching business that I now have, an international practice of neurodiverse coaching, where I'm helping people on every continent, in every time zone. I'm, hosting groups. I'm considered a thought leader in the space. I've written a chapter in a book that's coming out. I'm on a lot of podcasts to talk about this. And it all started. I knew a lot of stuff, Joe, but COVID was the incubator that just synthesized it all for me.
Yeah.
And I can't say I thought COVID was good, but it was transformative, a time in my life to pull back from a lot of things, reassess, retool, and redirect my life. And so I was already 63 at the time, but my mother and grandmother lived to be 93. And I thought, yeah, I have probably another 30 years here. I better get busy and think of what I'm going to do for those next 30 years. My marriage didn't make it.
Yeah.
Sadly, it took several years to wind it down and look for opportunities to reform it, but there was not a mutual interest in that. And so I left California, I left Southern California, moved to Oregon, and God, I mean, you would not believe this, but I came up here. Then my daughter and son-in-law moved here. My ex and his wife, and we're best friends, my ex and his wife and I, they moved here. And just this past weekend, my son moved up here. And now
Wow.
we're all in Oregon and we're all unified and we're having the time of our lives.
Great.
And So that's
That's
what happened
wonderful.
in COVID.
Wow, that's wonderful. So, yeah, I mean, the chances and that's a lot. So, what I want to do next is I want to get to the heart and soul of what you do now in 2024. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids, and one
Okay.
of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?"
Yeah.
How would you give them a synopsis of what you do?
I would say that everybody's different, but some people are a little more talented relationally and a little more challenged relationally. And the ones that are challenged, they might not know that what they're saying is not being understood. So sometimes a mom and a dad speak two different languages in their heads and in their relational style. And I am the translator. I'm the one that helps each of them understand how to use their words and their actions to be more connected with one another. And I help them understand their wiring in their heads, that everybody's okay, nobody's doing anything bad, but how to get on the same wavelength and be a better team. That's what I do.
That's great. That's a great description. So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
You know what? I was an artist. I was always drawing. I had a bit of a traumatized youth, and I was hiding out in my artwork and finding joy and fulfillment. So I kind of thought I'm going to do something with art and design. I did get an undergraduate degree in interior architecture, a minor in fine art. Worked in New York City in high-end interior design for years. Was painting a lot. And I was going to be a professional painter and maybe an art teacher. But when I was 30, I got pregnant, and many things shifted in my life. And I decided to just be a full-time mom. I was in a marriage where I was able to be supported and began to create my children's lives and realized that the creative process, Joe, across fields, across disciplines, if you're a creator, you're seeing what's possible and you're looking for avenues to bring it into reality.
Yeah.
And so I have done so many different creative projects, whether it's children's home video in the mass market, whether it's writing, whether it's creating Bible studies or ministry projects, you know, healing people in the coaching practice, gardening, cooking,
Yeah,
even sales job, building a corporate sales team. I was a VP of sales and marketing in the corporate world for a number of startups, and it's all creative.
it is. I totally agree. There's a myriad of ways.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, with all of these desires and drives and dreams you've had, who has been that hero, that inspiration for you?
I have to say, Jesus Christ. All right. I know that's going to sound trite, but I have come to know him. And it's a difference between knowing Jesus and really understanding, learning his teachings and living them. Very different than just calling yourself a Christian or just going to church on Sunday. It's a completely different thing. And he is my zenith. He is my North Star. He is a standard of heart, mind, soul, and strength that I feel is alive in every way. And I'm more and more, and I'm very excited to share that with others who are also looking for that level of life and joy and fulfillment in this world.
So, if you could meet one person alive right now on this planet that you find fascinating, who would
Yeah.
that be? Who would you love to meet?
Well, you know what? It's ironic, but this mentor I had in Atlanta, we are on the phone, we are messaging, texting, talking all the time. I've never physically met her. And we're best friends, tight colleagues, thought leaders together. I would love to meet her. And she wants to come and visit me in Oregon because Oregon is one of the 3 states she hasn't yet been to. I just want to hug her. I want to see into her face and eyes and hold her hands.
Yeah,
And we're so close, but I've never physically met her. So she is the one I would like to meet.
that's excellent. So, let me ask you this, and what is ultimately the drive for you every day to get up to do the work that you do? You're changing people's lives, but you also have to hold enough back to
Uh,
evolve yourself.
yeah.
How do you take that entirety every day and wake up and do the best you can with all of it?
Well, a lot of it is my faith that I just have to do it today. I don't have to figure out tomorrow what happened yesterday. Okay, I can't change that. I can learn from it. So I am a very interested and curious learner in life, and I will learn from anything and everything that I can get my hands and eyes and mind around. and I have a high expectation of progress. I just believe in that. I mean, I'll just give you an example. In January, end of December last year, I got on the scale after not playing tennis or doing much for several years and being in a big transition. And I was 25 pounds more than I wanted to be.
Yeah.
So I just said, okay, I'm gonna lose weight. And somebody said, get the Noom app. I'm like, okay, I got the Noom app, but it was really just a support to my own goal of eat more healthy food, count your steps, get better sleep, learn about what is. And you know what, Joe, today I'm 25 pounds lighter than I was on January 1st.
Wow.
And I'm like, I just make an assumption that I can grow and go forward.
Yep.
And what you believe and think about, you bring about.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm just looking for the direction of my taking personal responsibility, getting the people in my life that can speak truth and love and encouragement to me, being careful with boundaries, right? If I sense that there's unsafeness or threat or unwholesomeness coming at me on whatever level, I'm like, no, thank you,
Yeah.
you know? And I don't define myself by what people think of me or how I look even. And the irony is people like me a lot better than ever, and I look better than ever.
Yeah. That's excellent.
Stop caring about that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Oh, okay. Somebody once told me it was a church situation and they were telling me about stuff I had messed up in and they were not very kind. And I was like, okay, they're not being nice. And they said to me, you know what, Barbara? Just because somebody isn't kind by telling you the truth doesn't mean it isn't the truth. And I thought, whoa, now that's interesting
Yeah.
because am I more interested in what's true and how to become a better person, whether it was said nicely or not? Doesn't really matter. It's so I go to the kernel of what I think is helpful and good, and I try to look past who the messenger was or what and all that, and I just want to grow and be the best me I can be.
Yeah.
So that was advice that got me attenuated to, yeah, seeking the truth, and that's what my life is going to be about. And I'm born on Christmas Day, so
Oh, wow.
it's an amazing birthday to have. Much of the world is celebrating that day, a day of great joy, and it's also a day that it's if you're a Christian, like Christmas is not about you.
Right.
Christmas is about the Lord. And I'm like, you know what? In this life, it's always his birthday, but in the next life, every day will be my birthday. It's like, it's a good deal for me. And I live
Yeah.
heaven in sight. I do. I don't think this is the only reality. I think we're made for amazing, amazing stuff. In fact, something that recently I came across, I don't know if you've seen this, you should look it up if you haven't. So there are new glasses that will help colorblind people to see color.
Right.
All right. And I'm like, somebody told me about, oh, go check out the videos. So I went on YouTube, found these videos, and oh my God, Joe, I was weeping watching the impact of color on the human psyche, emotional psyche, and brain for the first time,
Yeah.
whether they were 7, 17, 37, or 57, people were melting
Wow.
in tears of joy.
Wow.
And I thought, that's just color,
Yeah.
right? And I do believe that our energy of what we are is going to transcend this temporal physical reality and come into a dimension of recognition of sight and seeing a reality so much more amazing
Yeah.
than what we can see and experience now. And the same way that just color brings people to tears and a life, that is what connecting and coming into heaven is going to be, this amazing emotional recognition of beauty, joy, peace, glory, unfettered.
Yeah.
And I can't wait.
Yeah. That's wonderful. What a great picture you painted. Um, so of all of the clients that you've had, what's been one of your favorite success stories?
Oh my goodness. I would have to say that so there's a couple. They're older. He was I was so intimidated. He was a doctor of psychology, had been a clinical psychologist for 40 years. He was 70 years old. And during COVID, they kind of figured, yeah, there's a big disconnect here. We've been together for 35 years, and they they had him assessed for autism. And so they found me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just a coach. I don't even have my master's, and you're a doctor of psychology. He goes, well, I think you might be able to help me. And so I just had some really helpful strategies and tools, and I worked with them separately to begin with. I helped her establish what she was struggling with and needing to understand. I helped him figure some things out. And then I began having them connect in sessions jointly where they learned how to understand each other, themselves and each other better, and how to communicate that better. And there were some tough times. They had some, like, we're not going to make it, this isn't going to work. But they kept leaning in, and they kept letting go of old expectations and seeing the new possibilities for
Yeah,
themselves as individuals and a couple. And just recently, I got a communication from both of them of they are having a better time in their marriage than they've ever had before.
that's great.
And I'm just so joyful for them. And I like to talk about them because they were older, they were educated, they thought they knew it all, but they put that aside and they were humble and curious and persevered and are now enjoying the fruits of that experience. Everybody can learn something if they want to, if they're
Yeah,
willing to let go of what they think they know
yeah,
and be open to the new, better way.
yeah. Well, speaking of that way, that new, better way, my son's 19, Miles, and he's on the spectrum. He actually clinically has a long arm on his 15th chromosome, which has been developmental delays. And um, yeah, so I've been in that special needs world for a long time. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how much they make you see the world in a completely different
Yeah.
way. But hopefully, my hope is that they get embraced for the gifts they have instead of seen for what the world calls disabilities, and
Yes.
that their services aren't so arduous and long to get. And I think that's the hang up right now.
Well, I totally share your desire and vision. What I observed when I finished my master's in marriage and family and therapy, you would think in 2023 that given that the CDC prevalence rate for ADHD is 1 in 9 children, 1 in 9,
Yeah,
and the autism prevalence rate is like 1 in 33, so very high. So you think like, okay, they're going to be talking about this, not a word. And it impacts relationships in huge ways. If there's an autistic ADHD child, there's likely an autistic ADHD parent or somebody in the family, right? Not one word. And I'm like, why aren't they teaching this yet? Well, my guess is that all the schools have prepared curriculum designed to educate and help their graduates pass the state board licensing exams. Now, these state board licensing exams, many of them have been written 30 years ago.
yeah,
None of them are current in terms of current practices or disciplines. Or so if you don't graduate and now become an intern and study with somebody who understands neurodiversity, you're not going to learn it. And unless you have it in your own life and you begin to read about stuff on the internet about like, oh yeah, my husband and I totally don't understand each other. And typical marriage counseling, typical therapy makes it worse
yeah,
because they're talking to these people like they can get concepts and understand and do things, and they don't recognize the skipting and the deficits that have to be dealt with.
yeah. Absolutely. Well said. That's totally true. So, of everything that you've done in your career and your life up to this point, what are you the proudest of?
I think I'm proudest of the work that I'm able to do right now, to tell
Yeah,
you the truth. I just got off the Zoom with a woman who's back in Rhode Island, and her husband is autistic ADHD. 3 years ago, they had a horrible car accident, and he became a quadriplegic. And they're people of faith, and she has been a business builder. She has been the matriarch, the strength, the 10 pole holding everything up. And she is now coming to a realization that God has really reshuffled the deck in their family, and there's all kinds of new understanding of neurodiversity in the kids, what this means, what it means relationally, what it means career-wise, what it means for her role. And everybody is starting to get in their correct lanes of what they are responsible for and what they're not, what
Yeah.
they can achieve and what they need to let go of, what they can fix and what they can just encourage in each other. And she is being such a heroic example of courage and faith, and learning to take her self-care, learning to love herself first as she then loves others. And there's changes all around her for
Yeah.
that. So, I mean, I'm looking at this like, how do I get to sit on the front line of this family's life and speak into it and encourage them and see growth and healing? Joe, I'm just stunned by
Yeah.
the privilege of that.
Yeah.
Like, why me?
Yeah.
You
That's amazing.
I just am a surrender, like, okay, there's another farming family in Northern Ontario. He's a farmer, generational farmer. He's autistic. They have an autistic older son, a very autistic middle son, and a normative 15-year-old. So they have 18, 16, and 15. This woman that I have been working with is herself trained in disability in care, but she's living in this household of neurodiverse testosterone.
Wow.
And she found me, and I have not only worked with her, I work with her husband. I have worked with both middle and oldest and youngest son. And now she's having me talk to their middle, very autistic son. And I'm the first counselor that he likes to talk to, wants to talk to. And I'm doing this whole thing with them, just helping everybody move further along in the mission that they can move in and be a better whole and a better family. Again, how do I get to be the person that has the privilege of
Yeah.
being on their team and speaking into that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's amazing.
It
It's
is
great.
amazing.
It's essential. So at the end of the day is the one that's driving the driving force behind your career now and all these incarnations. Everyone's seeing you in a light, family, friends, clients, but you've always driven the bus. You run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Well, I don't think I drive the bus at all.
There you go.
I'm on the bus going home to heaven, and Jesus is driving the bus.
There you go.
He is not going to let me off the bus. I'm on by his grace, not by my own effort. And I might as well just sit around and share my lunch and, Kool-Aid with whoever's on the bus and enjoy the ride. So if I'm given something that's an opportunity to love and serve, and I'm prayerful about that, I do my best. I don't think I control anything. And I do believe, I tell everybody that I work with, the ultimate coach, the counselor on the job is God.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to follow his lead and point them all in that direction. I want them to all be independent of me and find their own footing
Yeah.
and hope in their life. So I'm just a handmaiden on that journey. And I think very little of myself, actually. And I think more of God.
Yeah. I love that answer. So if anyone wants to hire you, reach out, learn more about you, any of the good business, where can
Yeah.
they go?
Okay, great. www.bg-hc.com.
Okay.
That's short for Barbara Grant, Hope for Couples, and that's the business I have. So if they look up Barbara Grant, Neurodiverse, or Hope for Couples, Neurodiverse Coaching, they will find me on the internet. And I give a free 20 minutes, a free hope and healing call to anybody who wants to talk to me. I'm happy to be a resource for anybody, send them whatever information I can, whether they coach with me or come into one of my classes or into my communities online, whatever I can do to help them.
This is wonderful. It's so refreshing. Your outlook's refreshing. I am truly grateful to everybody that's been a part of Miles' life to help him. So it's very essential, as you've talked about the numbers being the way they are. We need more and more of this compassion and therapeutic insight to the world. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Joe. God bless you and keep up on your mission. I love listening to your show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a